I was online before online was cool.
Yeah.
So I was my triathlon coaching in the triathlon space. That was I started my business in 2013, thejenrulon.com, and I was coaching triathletes all around the world: Australia, Sweden, United States, Canada, Mexico.
Right.
And then what happened is when I realized I myself wasn't in the triathlon space anymore, so then I needed to shift my way of thinking and start realizing there's a lot more women in the world that need my expertise versus triathletes right now,
Right.
because I've gone through a major change. I've gone through perimenopause. I've gone through menopause. I've gone through a divorce. I've, there's all these things that I have done for myself. And the three things that kept this brain together during those tough, tough times was fitness, nutrition, and mindset.
Hello, I'm John Brink, and we are podcasting on the Brink from downtown Prince George, British Columbia, Canada. And for all those guests watching us from around the world, they're saying, okay, we know Canada, and we think, yeah, British Columbia is on the west coast, right? And there's the big city called Vancouver. We are 500 miles north of Vancouver, or 800 kilometers, and for our friends in Europe, and that puts us in the middle of British Columbia, north, south, east, west, big province. And so, looking outside, we have lots of timber. We got within 50 miles 100 lakes, and lots of wildlife: black bears, grizzly bears, caribou, deer, wolves, you name it, we have it, living in harmony with nature. Now, you have to make a promise to me, Jen. Don't tell anybody, because otherwise they all want to come here.
I won't. I'll be quiet.
Just kidding. So, my guest today is Jen Rulon. And Jen is an amazing individual that ran 15 marathons. 15 marathons.
Ironmans.
Which was it?
Ironman.
Oh, Ironmans.
Ironmans.
Ironmans. Sorry about
Ironman.
that. Ironman.
Triathlons.
And
That's
so,
okay.
what is an Ironman? It is biking,
Swimming,
running, swimming.
running. Yep. Swim,
And,
bike, run. Which there's a marathon in those. So I did do
yes.
15 marathons.
And,
Yeah.
and, and the first one was, they started this all in Hawaii, right? On the big island?
Yeah. The I believe the first one was Ironman. Yes, Ironman Hawaii. That was in 19 oh
Thank you.
79, 80 maybe.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's been yeah. So that was the first one. It's a 2.4 mile swim, 112-mile bike, and a marathon run. So
Ooh.
if yeah,
So it takes somebody special to do this, in terms of, you have to be able to swim well, you have to be able to bike well, and so all of that is a combination in being a good runner. So how did you get into all of this?
yeah, or a little crazy, right? One of the two. um, so it was exactly what I was. It was 1989. I was watching the Ironman World Championship on the ABC Wide World of Sports,
Right,
and if you remember the tagline, "The thrill of victory and the agony of defeat,"
right.
and I was watching that day. I was 17 years old, and I said, when by the time I'm 30, I'm going to do that Ironman. I'm going to do the Ironman World Championship. And about maybe 2 months later, I go to Christmas and I talk to my grandpa, who was my inspiration for many, many years. World War II vet, Purple Heart vet. And I said to him, I said, Grandpa, I said, when I'm 30, I want to do the Ironman World Championship in Hawaii. And he goes, well, when you go, I'll go with you.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
And he did.
Well, he was there in spirit.
Right.
So it took me. long story short, it did not take me the first time to do an Ironman. I did my first Ironman in 2002,
Okay.
and Grandpa passed in 2001.
Yeah.
So, but 28 years later, I did make it to the Ironman World Championship in
Must be still
Hawaii.
on your mind, though, right? Yeah.
It is. It
Yeah.
is. It's not a part of my life. Triathlon and triathlon coaching isn't really part of my life anymore, but it will always be near and dear to my heart. It's in my DNA.
Yeah. So you do a number of other things as well. So you're well known for this virtually now, if not before. Obviously, we are global and we want to share with them your life and the inspiration that others get from your goals and objectives and fulfilling it. And, so tell us a bit more about what you're doing in between Ironmans or training and all those other things.
Sure, sure. So since I've retired from the sport in 2019, I decided I was very confused, lost, alone because for 30 years I was so focused on the triathlon space as an athlete, as a coach, as a business owner. So I had a lot of companies reach out to me regarding triathlon space. So here I was like, oh my God, what am I going to do?
Exactly.
And people are like, oh, are you going through a midlife crisis? I'm like, no, I've closed the book of the triathlon space. I don't need to do that anymore.
Exactly.
So I came down to Costa Rica for the very first time in 2019. And I sat on the beach and I cried and I talked to the universe and or my higher power and I was like, I need a path. I don't know what that path looks like. Well, moving fast forward to 2024, here I am living in Costa Rica as a digital nomad, and I focus on strength training. I walk, I surf. I've taken up surfing because I've missed that water element in the triathlon space, and I miss that sense of freedom being out on the board or being out on my bike, running, swimming. So the surfing allows me to do that. And I work virtually, which is amazing. I have athletes all around the world.
Isn't it amazing, Jim? So there
Yeah.
you are, after a 30-year career in building a reputation in triathlon and then being successful in it amazingly, and then wondering all of a sudden you retired and that left a vacuum all of a sudden, and all this activity that always was getting ready for the next challenge and the next goal,
Yeah.
you had to readjust to that mentally, physically, and your whole life was around that.
100.
And then you decided then, seeking where do I go from here, to go to your paradise, Puerto Rico,
Costa
and
Rica.
Costa Rica, and then
Uh-huh.
started all over again from there, and then
Yeah.
finding a new model, which was virtual interaction with the globe and on ideas that you just shared with us. And
Yeah. Well, and I should be very transparent. I was online before online was cool.
yeah,
So I was my triathlon coaching in the triathlon space. That was I started my business in 2013, Rulon.com, and I was coaching triathletes all around the world: Australia, Sweden, United States, Canada, Mexico.
right.
And then what happened is when I realized I myself wasn't in the triathlon space anymore, so then I needed to shift my way of thinking and start realizing there's a lot more women in the world that need my expertise versus triathletes right now
Right.
because I've gone through a major change. I've gone through perimenopause. I've gone through menopause. I've gone through a divorce. I've, there's all these things that I have done for myself. And the three things that kept this brain together during those tough, tough times was fitness, nutrition, and mindset.
Yeah, yeah. Those are the main goals on
Hmm.
for everybody.
And
Virtually,
you get it. You
it
get
should
it.
be. You know.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, you absolutely get it. I mean, I see your book, I see what you promote, and it's beautiful. I mean, it's beautiful. And I think so many women don't want to go into the gym because one, they don't know what to do. Two, they feel embarrassed. Three, they're like, "Oh, I don't want to get bulky." I'm like, "Y'all, as a 50 almost 53-year-old woman, like you have to get into the gym. You have to start strength training."
Yeah.
And I always tell people, I'm like, it's the fountain of youth. Strength training is the fountain of youth.
Exactly. And so I feel the same as you did, and you checked on my background, obviously. And
Yeah,
so
of course.
at nearly 84 years young,
You
I'm
are not.
yes, I will be 84
Oh my,
November the 1st.
well, oh
Yes.
my, we're Scorpios. I'm October 27th.
Oh, I like
Look at
that.
you. Yeah.
So here's a picture of my last
Amazing.
book. That's me, and the I'm the oldest competitive bodybuilder in North America, living young, dying old, and I was a late bloomer as well. Although wanting through business and all the other kinds of things. Let me give you just a
Mm.
bit more background that you likely know. I was born November the 1st, 1940 in northeastern Holland, close to the German border. And as we
Yep.
all know, that was a difficult period because this guy by the name of Adolf Hitler had decided that he would control Europe. And so my parents were married in 1938. They were in love, and so they're so excited about life. They had a boy first fairly quickly, and then a girl after that. And then my mother was pregnant with me and in the early stages of 1940. And then what happened? Hitler decided to invade Holland, and the whole world changed for them. My dad
Mm.
was called into the Dutch army in April of 1940, and the last they heard from him was he was seen during the bombing of Rotterdam, where thousands and thousands of people died.
Mm.
And so they would not know for 5 years if he had survived or lived or died. And so the first thing that I remember was, in 1943, 44, when I was 3.5 years old, was the sound of hundreds of bombers, Allied bombers overhead,
Mm.
bombing the German infrastructure that was building all the equipment for the war. And we were in northeastern Holland, and my mom would take us outside on a flat roof at nights in particular, not to look at them. She felt safer outside than inside. And even at 3.5 years old, I still remember the sound will never be another sound like it.
Yeah.
400 bombers in the air, and the sound of that. And in the distance, we
Mm.
could see the sky was red over Hamburg, Bremen, Wilhelmshaven, Kiel, all those areas that we could see way in the distance. The sky was red. And then the next thing that I remember, from the winter of the 1944 in particular, was the hunger year where the Germans had cut off all the food supply to Holland and other places, and a lot of young kids died because of lack of food, and older people that were vulnerable died. And we would go every morning, my brother, my sister, and myself, with gunny sacks into the railroad yard, and we picked up anything edible and burnable. And the
Mm.
reason that we did as kids, because they wouldn't shoot us, they boot us one, but we'd be back the following morning. And so even now still, I can feel the feeling of hunger, during that
Mm.
period. And then the winter of
Sure.
1944-45 was the coldest on record in Holland. And again, a lot of people died, and we had a little stove that we kept warm in the one part of the house to stay warm, or try to stay warm, at least in
Sure.
one, so still remembering that. And then the other part that was part of me was we were liberated by the Canadian Army, April the 12th, 1945. And it made such an impression on me as being 5 years old that I always knew from that point forward I would go to the land of my heroes, Canada. And I was trying to go when I was
Beautiful.
17, but then was drafted into the Dutch Air Force for 2 years.
Okay.
And then I finally left for Canada when I was 23 with a suitcase, 3 books, 2 sets of clothes, a little bit of money. And I had another dream because my dad was in lumber, my grandfather was a master carpenter. I wanted to build a lumber mill in Western Canada where all the trees are in British Columbia. And so that's what I did.
Amazing. That's incredible.
So the other part about it was interesting is that I landed in Montreal, went across Canada, and did by train 4 days, 5 nights. Can you imagine? It's a long, big country. I
The
arrived
big
in
country.
I arrived in Vancouver, couldn't speak the language, didn't know a soul, didn't have a job. Went through the immigration department, and there was a German fella there, so I could speak some German. I told him what I wanted to do. I wanted to build a lumber mill. And so he said, go to Prince George, 500 miles north, obviously, 800 kilometers, and Prince George.
Right?
So that now is 60 years ago. I can still see from here the area where the Greyhound station was. So I came off the bus here and
Uh-huh.
with the suitcase, 3 books, 2 sets of clothes, and I counted my money at least 3 times. I had exactly $25.47.
Wow.
Couldn't speak the language, didn't know a soul, didn't have a job. But I did have attitude. I've always been positive. No matter what, even
Sure.
still today, I avoid negative. Don't even come near me with negative. So the other one is passion. Whatever I do, like you do, is I gave it 125%, always, even still today. And then work ethic, I work harder than anybody. I usually get up at 5:30 in the morning. I always make my bed. I always think I'm late.
Hmm.
And so I did build my mill and a lot of other things, and it changed my life, obviously, and all the objectives. But I started as a cleanup man, lumber pilot, but I always stayed the course. I had a dream,
For you.
and that was it. So
Hmm. Yeah. And I like that dream for you. You said you looked up to your heroes, and those heroes were the Canadians, and you got
yes.
there as fast as you can, which is beautiful.
Yes, and then we are so lucky and so fortunate because now I look at it after all these years. I have a
Hmm.
number of businesses, but it's not about how successful John is in business. But I've done well. But I fly around a lot, do a lot of business in the United States as well. And every time that I
Okay.
do, and I fly commercial, I always sit by the window and I always look outside and I say, "It's paradise.
Hmm.
It is paradise." And so and then sometimes I wonder we are a lot of times not appreciating what we have because
Correct.
I was there during a dictatorship when Hitler took over Holland and other places in Europe, and millions and millions of people died. It changed the lives of many, including my family. My dad came back after the war, but he was never the same again. And with
Hmm. He
PTSD
did
and,
come back.
and
Yeah. Sure.
yeah, and so and it changed our lives, and that's what happens in dictatorships, and that's I feel so bad about the people in the Ukraine and Eastern Europe, the ones in the Middle East, and because war is bad. A lot of people that are somewhat respectfully naive about it, they think, oh, it's war, and then when the war is over, everything goes back to normal. No, it doesn't. It takes
Right.
generations in a lot of cases.
For
But
sure.
we
For
are
sure.
very, very lucky in North America. That is the United States and Canada together in particular, but North America in particular.
Hmm. Yeah. I mean, I'm from the States, so I was born in Michigan, moved over to Wisconsin, and then lived in Minnesota for 2 months, then moved down to Gulfport, Mississippi for 2 years, and then moved over to San Antonio, Texas for 25 years. But I realized that San Antonio no longer served me as a woman, as a human, as a business owner, and I knew I wanted to be that digital nomad living in paradise 2 minutes from the beach. So, yeah.
Perfect, right? And
Yeah,
then
yeah.
the other thing that changed your life and also had a major effect on mine is that obviously the ones that I look back on, the Canadian Army liberating us had a major impact on my life because I wanted to go. I always knew I would go to the land of my heroes, Canada. The other
Hmm.
one was that going to British Columbia and then looking at what my grandfather had done, although I didn't know him. He was a master carpenter, and my dad worked in the lumber industry. I wanted to go into the lumber industry and become successful. The other part that affected me was that I was academically not a success story. I failed grade 3 and I failed grade 7 3 times. And so
Mm.
people would say to my parents, what do we do now with this guy, at 13? They said, well, maybe send him to the mentally challenged school. They said,
Mm.
no, we're not going to do that. So they then said, okay, so I liked lumber. And so they said, okay, let's make him, maybe send him to a furniture factory. So that's what he did at 13. So I became a worker, a laborer in the furniture factory. And at nights I would become a furniture maker. And so at 13, and kids are hard on each other. So all the friends that I had that went on to college and university kind of looked down on me because I was a laborer. I'm proud of that today, but then,
Mm.
so,
Back then, right?
but I always knew that I was no less than, no better than, but no less than any of them. So I felt good for me to start a new beginning at
Hmm.
23, left Holland, suitcase, 3 books, 2 sets of clothes, very little money, and with the dream of building a lumber mill. And so going to here, and then the other thing that happened to me, although I was already successful, a lot of people, I didn't feel, they said, oh, you're so successful. I didn't feel that way until one day I walked into a bookstore here in 1997. I had been here already for 32 years. And I picked up a book, and the title of the book was Driven to Distraction, written by Dr. Halliwell. I don't know why I picked it up, medical doctor. And
Hmm.
I opened the book and started reading it. It's about ADHD. And I said, oh my God, that's me. And this is the actual book that I picked up. And I wrote in the book, now, January
Wow.
1997, now I finally know who I am. And so that
Amazing.
kind of changed my life because the more initially I looked at it and it was, some people thought it was a mental disorder and there was stigma
Hmm.
attached to it. And I was building companies. And so what would I do as I go to the bank and make proposals for investment, millions of dollars in infrastructure, and then say, oh, by the way, I have a mental disorder, and they say, "Have a nice day," right? So I
Right.
kind of had to find out more and more about it, and then the more I found out about it, then I knew it's a superpower. It is a superpower, and so
Hmm.
that's kind of the way I look at it. So that part changed my life, So
Amazing.
since that time, I wrote a book about it. I speak
Mm.
about it in a number of settings. Not all about it, but about other issues as well. But I always
Hmm.
include a little bit about ADHD. And by the
Sure.
time I'm finished with it, more and more people are coming out and say, "Yeah, I never told anybody, but I think I am too." By the time I'm done with my presentation, I'm a good presenter. Then a lot of people in the room say, "Damn, I wish I had it too."
Hmm. Hmm. Right. Amazing.
So what I'm suggesting is that to have goals and ambitions, and then the foundation for me and you, I believe, has been attitude, passion, work ethic. You must have dreams, dream big, and then don't give up. Stay the course.
Right.
And I
Right.
I find a
For
lot of
me, I think for me too is that I had grit.
yeah.
And a lot of people, and I'll be very transparent, I absolutely hated running growing up. Hated it, but I got really damn good at it. Really good at it because during my races, during my Ironmans, I would go and pick people off on the runs. I would just go, I was a good swimmer. I was an okay cyclist. But then when I got to the run, I'm like, game on. This is my jam. And so what do they say? 10,000 hours to starting to get good at something? I probably put in 10,000 hours to get good at running. And that is where I would come out of the swim maybe at 20th in my age group. I would I would come off the bike maybe at 12. I would be top 3 in my age group on the run. And I would come in at the top 3, top 5 of the run. And that's how I qualified for the Ironman World Championship, and I qualified at Ironman Mont Tremblant in
Unbelievable.
Canada. So yeah, yeah. But when I got to Hawaii, I was like, I don't care. I'm here. I'm in Hawaii. I sucked it all in. I stopped in the ocean. I talked to the lifeguards, and I enjoyed the flow of the world championship and just didn't try to push it. So
But the other part about it, Jen, though, and for our guests, especially the younger people watching us, is that you develop confidence as who you are. And I believe what is been very important for me, having questions about who am I, was a big part of my life. And it was really not for
sure.
me until I was nearly 62 years old that at 57 I found this book. I was already successful in business. Everybody said, "You're so successful." I didn't feel that way. And then when I found the book, I read the book, then I knew that this is me. And then I had struggled with the stigma and mental disorder suggestions. Then it took me 5 years before I went to my doc, who was a personal friend, delivered our 2 daughters. And I walked into his office and he said, "Hey, John, why are you here?" I said, "I think I got ADHD." And so we looked at it, and I do. And so by then I was 62. So imagine this, since the time I was 13 years old, nearly 50 years later, I finally found out who I was and why.
Mm-hmm.
And so the point that I'm making is this one: to most people that I speak to, I was challenged by all the things that I did. I put in question, who am I? Why am I not successful? Why am I, looked at as, in a negative way about my training, education? Because in Holland, the way it works is that the first thing that you do, you get married and hopefully build a family, have a career, and then they say, "So, John, where are your diplomas?" Well, I don't have any diplomas,
Right.
in Holland that becomes a bit of a challenge. I found
Mm-hmm.
mentally, and so then when I came here, and then when I knew that part, I started to look at it in a whole different way. Now I know who I am. Then I understood it. Then from there on in, changed for me, including another thing that happened. I had nearly died on at one point on diverticulitis in 2008 when I had a breach and all the
Sure.
toxins, and I had about
Yep.
48 hours to survive it. So they took 20
Mm.
centimeters out. My wife is a vegetarian. I didn't listen all that well. I could have done better, she would say. And so then I knew the doc said, "You came this close." I knew I had to change.
Mm.
And so I started to look more careful at my diet. And then I started to go to the gym. Before I was doing the same as other people do. You make commitments. I'm going to do this, that, and the other thing at the end of the year, and I'm going to buy a membership for the gym. And then 2 weeks later, you can find 100 reasons why you're too busy, right? So,
Oh my God. It can I tell you John, that just annoys the bejeebers out of me when I hear so many excuses from people that I always tell them my favorite quote. If it's important to you, you'll find a way. If not, you'll make an excuse.
exactly. And so then I found a reason, so that I then
So why?
know I get a trainer, because before that I would go to the gym, same as you were saying earlier about going to the gym. And then I felt that everybody was watching me and saying, why is he here? He doesn't even know how to sit in the equipment. And so I felt self-confidence. I didn't have.
Sure.
And so then I got a trainer. And after I was training for 6 years, then hard because I give it all that I got. Then somebody came up to us and
Right.
saying, have you ever thought about competing? I said, me? At 68? Yeah. And you look good. And I said, why not? So I did. And so then
Amazing.
in 2017, I started training harder and harder. 2017, I competed in Northern British Columbia bodybuilding and physique. I came in second bodybuilding, third in physique. That qualified me for the provincials. Same there. That qualified me for the nationals and the Arnolds. And
Ah, yes.
then COVID came. And so now
Yes.
today, I'm training again. And, in 2025, and I'm 85, I'm again going to the Arnolds. I'm in very good shape,
Good.
and, I'm telling Arnold, I'll be back. So.
Exactly. I love it. I love it. Yes. Congrats. That's amazing.
So the point that we both make, I believe, is that what this did, it took me a long time to build the confidence that I'm okay. I'm at peace with who I am. And then
Hmm.
I build that confidence that I can do it because I have the mindset I will do it. If I see a challenge, I will give it
Hmm.
all that I got. And obviously, lots of experience. I did that in business. I do that in writing books. I do that in my presentations. And I'm doing that in
Hmm.
going to the gym. And I'm doing that in my podcasting and all the things that I do.
Hmm. Hmm. Yeah. As a 15-time Ironman triathlete who took a chance on life to move down to Costa Rica and took up surfing at 51 years old, I mean, I get it. It's the confidence that the gym has brought me, but also the race course has brought me, has really played a role as a business owner and as an author, as a speaker myself. So, yeah.
And it's that foundation, Jen, with all the ups and downs, because I'm positive that you, as you already indicated, it wasn't easy along the way. And so for all the
Nope.
reason that you, and so I wrote, the first book that I wrote is this one, Against All Odds.
Hmm.
So, and it is not about hurrah, hurrah, how successful John is, but I'm sharing with everybody all the ups and downs that I went through along the way. That
Hmm.
they, as they look at me today and I'm successful in business, they say, well, you were lucky. Well, the harder you work, the luckier you get, obviously. And then the other
Hmm.
part is what did it is the foundation. That and then saying that never give up and stay the course and believe in yourself and get to peace with who you are. And then the other part is what I find in my presentation that I do to younger people, college, universities that I speak to, is that there is only one of you. So don't be critical about this, that, and the other thing. This is not right.
Hmm.
There's only one of you on this whole earth. Be at peace with who you are, and
Correct.
then develop your goals and objectives and stay the course. Give it all you got.
Hmm. Exactly. Exactly. I think for me, I think not loving running, but then wanting to do an Ironman really played a huge role in my growth as an athlete. But I remember putting on, I grew up in Whitewater, Wisconsin. It was a town of 12,000 people. And from my house to Fremont Street was a mile because I had to go clock that in the car, right? Because I didn't
Yeah.
have the fancy watches or whatever. And so I thought, all right, well, I'm going to put on my Nike Air Pegasus at I think I was 19 at that time. I was like, all right, I'm going to run. And so I ran down to Fremont Street and I ran back. I knew I'm like, all right, I got 2 miles. And my mom no longer lives in Whitewater. She moved down to Florida, but sometimes when I would go back to Whitewater, I would be like, oh, I'm going to go run to Fremont Street and come back. But the great thing is that I could run pretty much across the town. The town was tiny, but I could pretty much run across town in probably the time that I did that 1 mile back in the days, right?
Yeah, unbelievable.
So it's just incredible. And I think if somebody at a younger age, or maybe prime example, like for you, like you started strength training, I started surfing at an age. We have that mindset of really, and that grit, that attitude, that passion. Like I said, if it's important to you, you'll find a way. If not, you'll make an excuse.
Exactly. And don't tell me you're too old or this, that, or the other thing. Is saying that
Right.
at 80, nearly 84, my dream is to compete in the Arnolds, and I will. I will be there,
And you
and
will.
and I
You
will.
will.
And all the other things, same as I started with. I will have a sawmill. I did get that, and a couple more,
Hmm.
and so it is attitude, passion, and then work ethic.
Hmm.
I know so many people that say, well, I'm this and I'm that, all the excuses, right? So we have heard all of
All
them.
the excuses.
So
Hmm.
the other thing that I find, Jen, and you do as well, you be a very successful podcaster, obviously, as well, among being a speaker, author, and all the other things, is that I find it amazing with being virtual, is that you're virtually on the other side of the continent, and then,
Hmm.
you know, the about 6, 7, 8 years ago, I started blogging and locally, regional,
Hmm.
and then gradually, then we said, well, we maybe should do something else. Is that the television station locally wanted to do a little program where we interview people. I did that, and then
Hmm.
COVID came, and then he said, what do we do now? He's saying, well, then I had this apartment here, close to downtown Prince George, and it's about 85,000 people here, maybe 100,000 in the region. And so we started interviewing those, one couch there, one couch here, and very casual. And then I was respectfully running a lot of successful people here, but I was running out of clients or
Yeah.
friends that I can interview. So I was thinking about setting up another studio in Vancouver. I have an apartment there, but then the more we thought about it, is saying, I was watching TV and I see CNN, CBS, and all the other ones. And they have 1, 2, 3, 4 different people on the program from all different. I said, maybe what we should do is go virtual. And that's what we did. Started Go Virtual, developed make it professional, right? The studio here and the cameras and all of those things are very, very important. And then, we were doing some, and then we were again running out of people, and then we signed up to podcast and a Podmatch, and
Hmm.
all of a sudden the world opened up to us, and now we
Does.
are podcasting globally. Just today I had somebody from Greece. I've had people from Australia,
Okay.
China. You have seen them all. So
Yeah.
I find it amazing because while you and me are interacting about our lives and where we have similarities, we never met before this, but I already know you're
Correct.
going to be my friend for a long, long, long time to
Ag-
come, and we will stay in touch.
Agreed.
And then, at the same time, but we know, Jen, tens of thousands of people are watching us around the globe. I know that. And
Great.
and and
Yeah.
so and it's only on its infancy now. It still will go much, much further. And
Sure.
virtual interaction and podcasting will become the new media. And so what I'm doing right
Hmm.
now, I'm working on, in the next couple of months, we're going to start a platform, that international platform, and I'm just working on the details around it and launching it before
Okay.
the end of the year. So that's what I'm
Nice.
planning to do. So share
Nice.
with us.
I
Go ahead, Jen.
Yeah. No, go ahead. No, go ahead. N- No, so last year I was sort of at a loss on what to do with my business.
Right.
And so I too launched my podcast, and I call it the Everyday Healthy Human,
Yeah.
but I've actually put it on hiatus because I've realized I can't help everybody.
No.
And so I've come to realize that it's like, all right, it's those women that are going through a major life change, whether that's perimenopausal, menopausal, divorce, loss of a parent, loss of a child, empty nest syndrome, whatever that might be. And that is who I'm helping. So I've actually put my podcast on hold. Now I am taking my podcast interviews that are more aligned for women, putting them on TikTok for long format.
Right.
And that to me, like, man, like, why start another podcast when I have all this content for women that I could just focus that on and put it on TikTok and YouTube. So that's what I'm doing. I'm reinventing myself, but I'm I'm working smarter, not harder.
Yeah. So but I should do, I want to stay in touch with you about that because I'm doing the same as you are doing. The podcasting has been quite successful for us. We're top 1% globally, but I believe we can do more. In addition to that, is go global with a platform that doesn't necessarily deal individuals. I do that on my podcasting, but go wider in terms of the
Hmm.
platform and incorporating the other ones, those elements. So I'm working on that, but I'm
Yeah,
going to stay in touch with you after our podcast, and then
for
probably in the
sure.
next week or so, I'm going to send you copies of my books that I do. I have 4 of them, and I'm working on another one. I have the one that I'm working on now is communications in particular, and I'm going to show you a copy of the outside as to what it will look like. And communications to me is important because I've been a Toastmaster for 10 years. I'm a distinguished
Oh, sure, of
Toastmaster.
course.
Yeah,
Yep.
and at the highest level in Toastmasters. But also, I'm very successful. I can say that to you, and you know what I mean. I've been very successful in podcasting and communication in a general sense, and that's important. Are you still there?
I went to itch my ear and my
It's
went
all
out.
good. It's all good. So that's what my next book will look like on the outside.
Okay.
The one on the
Okay.
right is me. No, I'm just joking. It's just abstract.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
So
Beautiful.
So that's kind of where we go. So share with us your, how do people get a hold of you, and what do you use for a platform now in terms of podcasting, as well as how they
Yeah.
can talk to you or and be in touch with you.
Yeah. So I am very active on Instagram as Coach Jen Rulon, Rulon. I'm very active on TikTok. I am on, and same thing, Coach Jen Rulon. Facebook, eh, it's there, but I'm not as active. I've realized TikTok has done an amazing job when it comes to analytics, and you find the right people, and they've done a really good job. TikTok's done a really good job, and I'm a little bit more advocate on TikTok right now. Instagram has done a really nice job for me on my return of investment as well. I am on jenrulon.com. That's my website. I am actually updating my website, so I'm hoping by my birthday that my website will be up and running. I'm super excited about that because that looks amazing. You could also go to my YouTube channel, which is Jen Rulon. And then, like I said, the podcast is the Everyday Healthy Human podcast. But once again, that is on hiatus. You could also go to Amazon. Hold that thought. You go to Amazon and you can grab my book,
I love it.
Self Motivation Strategies for Women.
I love
So
it.
I actually wrote this with a publisher in 2020. So they actually came to me and said, "Hey, what are you doing now?" Because they asked me to write a book in the triathlon space, and I had to turn them down because I had so much going on during that time. I couldn't commit to it. And so 2020 happened. All of a sudden, I didn't have any athletes to coach
Yeah.
because nobody was doing Ironmans,
No.
right? So I
No.
lost a lot of my clients. Some of
Right.
my clients stayed on, But then I had a publisher come to me and say, are you available to write this book? What are you doing? And I'm like, I started working with women. And I honestly didn't know that that was the path I was supposed to be taking until I actually stepped away from the triathlon space.
Isn't it amazing?
Yeah. Yeah. So the universe knew what it was preparing me to do. I just had
Exactly.
to catch up to it.
I feel the same because I only became an author after I was 62. And
Mhm.
because being an author is not easy. And a lot of people
No.
had said to me, John, you have such an interesting life. Why don't you write a book about it? So I
Ugh,
stopped, and I stopped, I started, I stopped, I started. And then finally I
a lot of
knew 5 years ago, if I don't do it now, it will not happen. And so I wrote
correct.
this book, Against All Odds. And then at the same time, I knew if I write a book, it has to be well done, not an amateur book. And so that's what I did, put a lot of effort into it. It's been
Hmm.
very successful, actually. The only problem is I have
Amazing.
to rewrite it because I wrote it 5, 6 years ago. And I thought Against All Odds was all the challenges. I'm still in the middle of challenges. And
For
it will
sure.
still be another one that so that became important for me and for all again those people watching us, like for Jen and myself. Age is just a number. It's your
Agree.
mindset that determines. And then the other part is important: quality of life, critically
Hmm.
important. After
Very
my
important.
my nearly dying, I listened to my wife more and I became vegan 90/20 or 80/20. I say a lot of times. And then my wife is vegetarian. So I usually do the shopping. She trusts me. And if I go
Uh-huh.
to the store, I go to the outside of the store because all the all the products in the middle of it, I don't know what is in it what they put in it. So we
Hmm.
mainly green
Hmm.
and organic, and so that's what we do. And and again, then obviously fitness very important. Go to the gym. Uh, Sleep extremely important,
Sleep.
and all
Hmm.
those elements. And so and then again, saying to me, they say, "Oh my God, 84! What? How do you do it?" I said, "Well, stay the course, all those
Hmm.
things. Get your sleep, get exercise, and you don't have to go to the gym, or you don't have to go to become a bodybuilder or an Olympian. uh, if
Correct.
you
Or an
just stay,
Ironman triathlete,
or for that matter, walk
right?
every day for
Walk
an hour, or start
every
out with a
day.
half an hour and keep doing it. And then before you know it, you look in the mirror and you look back, or somebody says to you, "Hey, Charlie, my God, you look good. What are you doing?" And all of a sudden you say, "Oh my God, it's working," right? And then
Hmm.
that gives you encouragement, and then it improves the quality of life, because a lot of times for people, the last decade of their lives is challenging because I
Hmm.
believe, and I'm not a doc or a specialist in it, but I know the body is extremely forgiving, but it will only take abuse for so long. And then all of a
Right.
sudden, these things happen where you should still have quality. So the objective is it's not age, it's just a number, but quality of life that is
Right.
critically important. And at 84, nearly 84, I'm still full of energy,
Hmm.
and I still do all kinds of things. I still get up at 5:30, do all of those things. And the reason for
Yeah.
it, I believe, is all those elements: sleep, diet, exercise, mentally, attitude,
Hmm.
passion, work
Hmm.
ethic, and all the elements that you talked
Yeah.
about as well.
Yeah. And I'm sure you know this, but starting at the age of 30, we will start losing muscle mass. It will start declining every 2 to 5% every decade. After 60, it gets worse. So when my women come to me and they're like, I don't know about strength training, and I'm like, I go, I guarantee, I go, give me 90 days, 90 days that I will provide you with a strength training plan, a walking plan, some type of fitness plan, nutrition, mindset. I guarantee if you do the work, you will make a change because your habits that you started developing will become non-negotiables in your life. And
Exactly.
I have probably a handful of women that started with me for 90 days. They figured it out. They're like, all right, it's the non-negotiables. Now they don't even think about it because it's part of their life.
And
So
they
even
and they
though,
love it. And they love it.
yeah,
You know.
yeah. Even though I may have lost clients, I've gained women who have empowered themselves.
No
So I
question.
always tell them if I don't if you don't stay with me for another 3 months, then that means that I've done my job.
Exactly. Yeah, and all of those things are critically important. But I believe also, Jen, correct me if I'm wrong in my mind, but although I believe people becoming more aware, that of those fundamentals, they
They
may
are.
not know exactly because it's so confusing for people to say, okay, take this, take that, and then you take that, and now you hear the next day, no, it's not the right thing, do the other one. So
Right.
and there is so much money in this area that there is
Yeah.
so much information, but still, if you focus on the right individuals and the
Hmm.
right podcasting, if you wish, or books, or people that are speaking about it from experience, like you, myself,
Hmm.
and that mainly their objective is to share with them what worked for them, will bring them in the direction that everything is possible. In my case, at 84, don't tell me that at 60 you're too late, you're done, and blah. It will
Yeah.
become, as you said, self-fulfilling. Whatever your dream will then be, and if you have concluded that you're too late, then it will be too late. If you say,
Hmm.
no, I can do it as well, everything is possible.
Everything is possible. Agreed. Agreed. I mean, my mom came down to Costa Rica for the first time, and the family didn't understand why I moved down here. They thought I was moving farther away from them. I'm like, just because I'm in another country doesn't mean I'm moving farther away. I'm like, if I lived in Hawaii or California, I'm way farther away than the East Coast, right?
Yeah.
So she finally came down. She's 77 years old, and she's like,
Oh
I
my.
want a zip line. Okay, let's go zip line. So we went to the Arenal volcano and she zip line,
Yeah.
and she was the cutest little thing. Like it was just everybody was like, that's your mom? She's 77? Like once
Oh,
again,
yeah.
age is a number, right?
Just a number. And then,
Just a number.
as long as the individual looks at it like that, it's just a number. Stay the
Hmm.
course, stay fit, diet, sleep. All those elements are critically important.
Yeah,
It's half a dozen elements is critical. Stay the course. Don't get involved in chemicals and all of the other kind of stuff.
right.
I don't drink, I don't smoke, and I don't use chemicals. And my
Right.
wife, my my wife has been very, very good for me in terms of saying, the follow the diet, and she is very, very careful about that.
Sure.
Jen Rulon, it was
Yes.
a privilege to have you on my podcast, and
Thank you for
for
having me.
all those people watching us from around the world, subscribe to our podcast, Jen's and mine, share it with others, like it, and comment on it, and because it then stimulates us, which it does already, to share with us our ideas about where do we go from here, and then look at our platforms and in Jen's. Mention your platform once more, Jen.
Yeah, you could go to jenrulon.com, JenRulon. New website is coming up, but then you could go to TikTok, Instagram, Facebook, and you just type in Jen Rulon and you'll find.
And then for me, John A. as in Aaron or Adam, Brink, BRINK.com. Jen,
Great.
it was a pleasure, my friend. We
Pleasure.
stay in touch. I'm going to send you
Let's
my
do.
books, and
Okay.
then I'll send them to you, and I will contact you in the next 2 weeks, and we'll talk a little bit more about platforms and all the other things.
Sounds great. Thank you, John. I appreciate you.
Thanks, Jen. Take care.
Thanks. Ciao.
Bye bye.
Bye.